Welcome. Oh, no, sorry. Clap sync. 3, 2, 1. And welcome back, everyone, to episode 16 of season 6 of the Shop Stool Podcast, which is also our last episode of the season. We got a lot of things to talk about, and we're going to start with something that meant that we couldn't do last week's episode. And Joey and I haven't caught up with Bryan since then. Bryan, do you want to run us through why we couldn't record last week?
Yeah, sorry guys, my fault. Fuck, I don't even know where to start.
We'll start somewhere because I really want to hear how this happened.
Okay. So I was running for a train and I banged my knee on a stainless steel railing at the train station. Right. And it was the most innocuous thing ever. Like, it felt like, the way I've described it is, it feels like banging your funny bone on your elbow and you get that kind of shock.
Right.
And then the pain's gone.
Oh, so it wasn't particularly painful?
No.
Right.
I was walking on my feet like the rest of the day, the rest of my night, not a problem. And then the next day I started to feel a little bit shitty and I was like, oh, I finally got COVID after 4 years or whatever. And then the following night, my knee started to blow up. Like,
wow, it
got massive. And it just, it's just a red swollen knee. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'll just ice it and, it'll go away. And then a mate of mine who's a physio kind of made the connection between the two. And he said, just make sure they're not related. And I'm like, well,
right.
how could me feeling like shit be related to my knee being injured?
Not a natural connection, yeah.
Not really, no. And then it sort of gradually got a bit worse. And I was like, right, I'll go to the GP. Went to the GP, got some antibiotics. GP said if it doesn't get any better in the next couple of days, go to the hospital. And then 2 days later, I woke up and it looked like somebody had stuck a pump and inflated my hand.
Oh, wow.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So then I was like, right, it's time to go to hospital. And they were very confused in hospital as to what had happened to me. It went from being, all right, let's just get you on an IV drip, get some antibiotics into you, and, you'll probably be okay to go home tomorrow and we'll just continue like a, antibiotics in home kind of care thing. And then like 3 hours later, they were booking surgery for me. So I had surgery on my knee and surgery on my hand. And it just went from 0 to 100 so fast.
So at this point, how long have you been sick for? Oh, actually, how long since you banged your knee at this point?
It was 6 days. Ultimately what they think I did was, you have these little things in your knee that produce fluid called bursa that just lubricate your knee and are just constantly producing fluid. So I smashed several of those, which just causes a whole big release of fluid, which then swelled my knee up, made me feel a bit ill. And then they think the swelling got so bad that it just opened up a cut or a graze or an insect bite or something that I didn't even know was there. So not from banging my knee, but just something that was on my knee. And then I developed a blood infection out of it. So
how did your hand be? How was your hand involved? It just a random.
Yeah. So once you get it's a staph infection in your blood, and once it gets into your blood, it can kind of present anywhere in your body.
Right.
They say usually it goes to your back from your legs for some reason, but yeah, they were all just super confused.
That's never fun. The doctors don't know what's going on.
No, like when they're bringing in, rather than, 2 surgeons coming in and talking to you, when there's a team of like 15 people with clipboards and they're recording the audio of the whole thing, I'm like taking photos. I'm like, okay.
This isn't for
like,
insurance purposes, is it?
They're like, are you sure you've been healthy? And I'm like, I spent one night in hospital, which was from my other knee reconstruction, and I've never had COVID, and I haven't been sick in about 10 years. So yeah, the whole thing was pretty bonkers. And like I kind of got that they were obviously pretty concerned the way things escalated so quickly. And then on Saturday after surgery, they kind of like quietly warned me. They're like, you know, we're really glad you came in when you did, because if you'd waited another 24 hours, it probably would have hit your organs. And like, could have been mega serious. And they said, but we do have to warn you, even with antibiotics, the mortality rate's about 20%. And I'm like, what?
Jesus Christ.
Because at this point, when you said blood infection, and I Googled it, the first thing that came up was sepsis. So what was it, sepsis, or is it different to a staph infection?
So sepsis is just a type of blood poisoning. So it can be caused by loads of different things. So
gotcha.
It's a staph infection. And there's lots of different types of, I think, God, I'm speaking so far out of my depth, but I've just been listening to medical chat for the last. There's different types of staph infection. Most of them respond to antibiotics, but I think it's MSA or MRA. MRA is the type that will not respond to any antibiotics. So there's just like a wait. They have to like take your blood, grow cultures, test it with antibiotics, and then find one that it responds to.
Jesus.
So fortunately, they found one that it responded to, and I've just got this kind of mobile. Well, nobody listening can see, but I've got this mobile antibiotic drip for the next 3 weeks, which at least allows me to get back on my feet, but it's still pretty restrictive. But like I felt totally fine. Like the day after surgery, my knee was just in bit. I've never felt pain like that. And it's just a little bit of keyhole surgery, whereas my other knee reconstruction, which you guys would remember, was like full dislocation of the knee and pinning things back in. Like that was the serious one, and that was probably a 6 out of 10 pain wise. This was like straight 10. And on Sunday night, I'm thinking, oh my God, like how am I going to deal with 2 buggered knees? And then come Monday
morning, the other knee. I just assumed it was the
no.
Same
this
one
was
before.
the good knee in inverted commas. And then Monday morning, a physio came around. She goes, "Do you want to try getting up on a crutch?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, you're gonna have to be ready to catch me." And I had no pain, and I haven't taken a painkiller in what's that? Nearly 2 weeks.
Did you not have any pain meds for the initial pain?
Yeah, so they gave me like endone. For when I was in a world of pain on the Sunday. But on Monday I woke up and I was like, nah, I feel fine. And they said, oh, we'd still like to keep you going on Panadol and maybe endone. And I'm like, no, I'm actually fine. And I've just had no pain since. I've felt totally fine since. But they're obviously like, it's the antibiotics that they've got me on are pretty heavy duty things. So they're obviously still concerned that they want to get rid of it.
Yeah.
So 3 weeks left of that, and then it's probably going to be 3 more weeks on oral antibiotics.
So can you do anything? Because your hand's a bit bung. Can you do anything around your property, your house, or anything? Or
I can do anything that's sort of seated. So fairly restricted.
So you're just gaming all day then?
Yeah, right. I've mowed all the lawns on a tractor the other day, and that was fine. But just anything that involves lifting, like my hand, the surgery on my hand is probably, like my knee's fine and it's healing. It's just a bit restricted with the fluid that's still in it, but it'll be grand. But my hand is the kind of concern. It was pretty deep surgery and it's right across my palm, so they don't want me gripping anything or overexerting. I just have to let it rest. So it's going to be another week to 10 days before I can really do any serious exercises with my hand, which sort of sucks. But at least it's my left hand and not my right hand. So I might find a way to be able to do some light sanding next week.
On one side of the thing.
Yeah.
What was the surgery on the hand? Like what were they doing? Were they just relieving pressure? Or?
Yeah, relieving pressure. So they had to drain a whole load of fluid out of it. Yeah,
okay. So it should recover to its original.
It should, but there's definitely nerve damage. Like I can't feel anything across the kind of the top of my palm.
Yes. Oh yeah, there it is.
Yeah,
just a little plaster on the top.
But it's just been fucking madness. like the whole thing, you know. And like Joey, you would have gone through something far more intense. But the weirdest thing was that I was feeling fine, and the doctors are telling me that I'm sick, and I'm like, not like,
yes,
I can literally get up and walk out of here, and that's not me being brash about it. It's like I feel totally fine.
Yes, it's odd, huh?
It's quite scary.
Really odd. And they were just like, you know, you might feel fine, but we have to go off the bloods, and like the blood test, there can be a 2 to 3 day lag between you feeling good and your blood's actually showing that in the test. So sorry, we're going to keep you in. So yeah, I had, was it 6 nights in the hospital in a 4-person ward? One guy across the way with diabetes and dementia who would spark up a cigarette at 9 o'clock every morning in his bed. Went into diabetic shock pretty much every night. So the ICU team were in. It was just, I mean, I should not complain because I know that we have lots of American listeners, and like the care was good. The surgery was amazing. And the cost is $0. So I really should just suck it up. But, but yeah, it was mad.
Yeah, I agree. Like, that's the problem with the quote unquote free healthcare, is just there's a slight lack of TLC with the just general kind of care of the buildings and everything like that. And, you know, things are a bit run down, but you get what you need, and the people are all very nice. They give you the treatment you need, but
just not sleeping. Like, how do you recover if you don't sleep, and how do you recover on crap hospital food? Like, the food was absolutely awful. But all the, like, I've always loved, I've hated hospitals, and I was like squeamish for needles and everything as a kid, but that's kind of changed after years of playing soccer and seeing really bad injuries left, right, and centre. Right. So like, I was used to that, but I've always had a fascination with medical imaging. So like MRIs and things like that have always fascinated me. And anyway, before they discharged me from hospital, they had to fit me with this thing called a PICC line, which is like a cannula, but it's a tube rather than a needle, so that they can give you the antibiotics. And they just sort of said, oh, you know, we'll take you down to theatre now to fit it. And I'm like, oh, I've got to go into theatre. And they're like, yeah.
For a needle? That's a bit strange.
It's just this tube. And I was like, right, okay. And then I got down to theatre, and they start explaining what it is. And it's a tube that goes in your arm, across your chest, and it stops 8 millimeters from your heart. And that's where the antibiotics go in.
That's so strange.
Right. I thought when you told us that, I thought it was just a measuring device at that time. I didn't realize that's what you've got in now.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they give you, this is so off topic for woodworking, but I hope everybody's enjoying the insights. They give you a local anesthetic in your arm, and you're just sitting there splayed out on the operating table, awake. And they start threading this thing into your arm, and next thing the surgeon asks for the x-ray to be turned on. And this thing comes down from the ceiling, this big plate, and it's sitting on my chest. And then you're watching a live feed video x-ray.
That's crazy.
I didn't even know that was a thing. I just assumed they'd be doing it via ultrasound or something like that. But this live feed x-ray of this little black tube being threaded slowly across your chest until it gets to your heart.
I don't think I could watch seeing my own heart there beating away, and there's too much, like,
you literally don't have, unless you close your eyes, you don't have a choice, because it's there on a big 100-inch TV screen in front of you.
But as you say, fascinating.
Absolutely fascinating. And I couldn't feel a thing, so it's like, you kind of have a degree of separation. You're like, oh, that's not me. And then you're like, oh, maybe it is me. And then your heart starts beating faster, and you're watching your heart. And you know, because you can see it. It was, but yes, thank you. Thank you to everybody who reached out. I had so many messages of support, and a lot of people saying that they had similar things happen to them, just from very, very minor injuries, developed blood infections, and the seriousness of it. So, like lesson learnt to everybody. Like if you're feeling off after an injury, hospital. Don't fuck about with that stuff. One of my mates was saying, so you basically Bob Marley'd yourself, but you didn't die, and you would have left less of a legacy. And I'm like, yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. Everybody forgets how he died. They assume it was like something violent or drug related or something. Just a kick about with mates and damages his toe and got sepsis.
Yep.
Game over, yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. When you sent us that thing about the blood infection and I got onto the webpage with sepsis, I was reading this. I actually looked at Jamie, my wife, and I went, shit, Brian's really sick. Like from what I'm reading, this is not good. This is real bad what he's got.
Yeah. It's
I had the same instant kind of thought as well. 'Cause I had a friend I went to school with who turned out to be a really good excavator driver, so I'd always hire him when I was building.
Yeah.
And he jumped down into a hole once and scratched his leg on a twig. Turned out it was rat piss on it, and he was the same as you. It's almost exactly the same situation as you, and really got to his organs, but he made it. But it was like, touch and go. It's just a matter of 3 or 4 days, and you're just laid out.
It's just crazy. Like I'm just trying to explain it to everybody has just been like, it's made me realize how serious it was and how lucky I was that I went in. So.
Yeah, because 100 years ago, or 50 years ago, tickets, game over.
I think the antibiotics I'm on were only, I think this was only invented like 40 years ago.
Yeah. That would have been it.
Crazy, yeah.
Bad luck.
See, good luck.
Yeah.
Or if you're somewhere where, you can't get that medical care or it's too expensive and you're like, I'll just see it out at home. And I think the mortality rate without antibiotics was about 80% or something.
Fuck me, yeah.
Crazy.
So, seize the day and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Right. So you've been doing nothing with Sawdust then?
I've been doing bits and pieces with planning the workshop.
Right.
So again, that's the whole frustrating thing. I've now got this beautiful sealed workshop. There's power to it. I just need to connect the stormwater. So I was in the process of doing that, of doing the stormwater overflow when my knee started to blow up.
Right.
So that's just sitting there waiting. And now, as soon as I get the okay to return to work, I'm going to be held to leather on that clover table.
Shit, you've got to finish that clover table.
Yeah.
Oh my god! Because when that's got a due date
pre-Christmas, so it was supposed It was supposed to be
still
10th of December. Yeah, it has to go pre-Christmas. It just has to. So whether I take somebody on to help me finish it, if I'm struggling, or whether I can get Lanny to sort of help me with the 2-person jobs. Like again, the advantage of being a home workshop now.
Yeah, I've absolutely. I've essentially employed my wife now again.
Yeah,
and she does 2 or 3 hours every day now.
Yeah. So I'll probably resort to that, and I'll be able to at least assemble it and do now all the machining's sort of done on the table. It's really just hand tools, power tools, the shaper. So I'll probably work on it in the new workshop, which would be good.
Yeah.
Like not having to step over machines and stuff.
Yeah. Awesome,
I also had this was again news. So I just had this week where the shit just totally hit the fan. One thing after another. My 98-year-old Nana in New Zealand got very sick, and we thought she was going to pass, and she made a remarkable recovery. Then my saw stopped working. Paddle, this was before I obviously hurt myself, but I was having to do taper cuts on the frame of the clover table before I could glue anything up. And I just went to turn the switch on one day, and the lights are all active, but the saw's not turning on. I'm like,
no sound, not the motor trying to run.
No, nothing going to the motor. So then I rang Carbotech, who are the stockists here, and they said, "Oh, listen, we've got the switch, but we can't release it until you go through diagnostics. So then you got to do there's like a key. I'm like, it's the switch. Like I can tell you it's the switch, and it doesn't like. I think it was $400 or something. I'm like, I will buy it. It will be on me, but I need this thing now. And they said, nah, it's got to go through America. So I've got to do this diagnostics thing with turning the key in the switch, and it's like a pattern of red and green lights that flash. That then gets sent to America. It took them a week to get that approved. Then I had to drive down to Melbourne, get the switch, fitted the switch, and then the next day I fucked up my knee. So,
but the saw was running.
So unacceptable for me.
Okay. Yeah.
From a point of view of building or running a business.
Yeah.
You cannot wait.
I know.
Like, it's the main tool in your shop.
Yep.
I've had that happen before with my router and my router table, where I've got 1,000 things that I'm going to use it for that week, and it just dies.
Yep.
And I just went out and bought a new one.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. I lost money on the job because I bought a bloody $600 router, but I could get it done in the same time frame, and then I got the other one fixed. So I've got a backup.
Yeah. But with a table saw, you're screwed. Like,
I mean, that's the worst service. Like, I don't know.
You're framing yourself from sort of Sawdust's perspective. You are saying this is a hobbyist machine. That's it.
Yes.
Do not bring it into a commercial space.
Yeah, pretty much. When the name of it is professional cabinet saw. So it's like
no business. I mean, imagine if you have, or even with me when I had a full-time employee, you can't have the table saw down for a week. What the hell else is going to happen in the workshop?
No.
It's really not. It's not acceptable.
So that was pretty shit. And I took apart the old switch, and I could see that it's kind of like there's a mechanism in the paddle which is attached to a plastic kind of rod that gets sandwiched in the switch assembly. And I could tell that there was a little bit of flex in it with the spring, so it wasn't depressing the button on the PCB properly. So I was like, can I sort of like find a way to sort of botch that together so I could work on it? And I'm like,
just hardwire it.
I don't want to fuck up my table saw at the same time. Like, especially because the circuitry in that is so complex. So anyway,
always the trouble with whenever simple machines are kind of quote unquote made smart.
Yeah,
they just become kind of fixable.
Yeah, I do get that, but at the same time, like I've had that saw for 10 years. And it has not missed a beat.
That's true.
So it's like I had another table saw before that the motor burnt out in, I don't know, a year and a half or whatever, and I've seen all the issues. I don't know if you follow the COC girls.
Yeah,
I mean, they've had so many issues with their Powermatic motors.
Yeah.
So like it's difficult. Like I'm not shitting on Sawstop, but being overseas and the time difference lag and the supplier here, like it definitely was far from ideal, but just amplified by the timing of, I get it fixed and then I'm out of action. So it's been a frustrating month.
I think I understand from the point of view of Sawstop that they want the information so they can use it to perhaps improve their product or just make sure what is failing so they can provide accurate service.
Yeah.
I don't agree or understand that you can't have somebody who can do that in the same continent as the machine is. Like it needs to be
100%.
relatively local, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's just,
I guess it's just that thing about being a small market,
Yes. Yeah.
And speaking of small markets, you saw Shaper finally launched in Oz.
Yeah, TimberCon.
A big juicy price tag on it, but
So
What are they worth?
$6,000.
6.5. With
Next month.
So with your Shaper, Brian. So I think you've pretty much outlined that you think that value is there for that price because you've raved about yours.
Depending on what you do with it, right? If you're going to use it to do big cutouts like the way you would with a CNC, you'd be better just getting a cheap CNC. Like what are the CNC Shark or what have you got, Joey? Or what did you have?
I've I've got the little X-Carve.
Yeah, X-Carve or something like that. Like if you're going to use it for cutouts, that's what you use. Whereas if you're going to use it for detailed work and on small components and things like that, it's even at $6,000 it would pay for itself. But yeah, I didn't pay $6,000. Like, yeah.
Okay, so that was going to be my next question. Then, in terms of that price, has it changed since you got into? I mean, I know when you got into it, it wasn't in Australia, but yeah,
I bought it pretty much in their launch phase, so it was still prototype, and the software in it was so far behind what it is now. But the software that mine's running is exactly the same as if you bought one today now because of the upgrades. So yeah, it was probably about, I think, $2,000 when I bought it. Again, that was when the Aussie dollar was worth more. It wasn't screwed against the US dollar, and it was before Festival bought it.
You bought it essentially from the makers, right?
Yeah.
So no markup, no third-party markup either.
Nah, it was them just getting started as a company, and I bought it through a mate of mine in America who used his American credit card to buy it. I wired in the money and reshipped it. And it was even before GST was a thing on imports into Australia. So, I just lucked out basically when I got it. But
because, man, I look at ever since that video of you doing your joinery with it, cutting your tenons, that's changed my view on it entirely. I don't particularly want to put a gigantic CNC table into my workshop. I don't have space for it. And the Shaper seems to take that role.
Yeah, it does a lot. Like a Panto router,
I was just going to compare them.
Yeah, it's hard because the Shaper does a lot more than a Panto router. But if you're just doing mortise and tenons, Panto, like if you're just going to use it for chairs or frames or whatever, Panto router wins hands down so much faster. Whereas
I think so. That's what I was going to say. Yeah,
all the additional stuff that you can do with the Shaper,
So, for example, if you want to do some fancy mortise and tenon and carve your logo on the end of the tenon, you can do that. Not with the Panto router, but I can cut a tenon in about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So there's a difference.
That tenon would probably take you. It depends because I've changed my technique on the way I cut tenons on it as well.
Yeah.
So I'll rough cut them on the table saw with a jig to like a millimeter oversize. And then I've literally just taken off a millimeter on the Shaper, and that has been
full
brilliant.
Depth? Are you doing like a full depth finish pass, or are you going like a couple?
So with the auto pass now on the Shaper, it sort of does it all for you. So you just set.
Right.
Whereas before, you'd have to, if you were using an 8mm bit or something, you're going 8mm deep, 16mm deep, 24mm deep.
Right.
Whereas now you set the final depth, and it'll do that step down route,
spiral cut,
and then it'll do a final cleanup pass at the end. So
interesting. Yeah,
it's definitely compared to the tool that I bought, it's evolved so much that I still see the value in it at $6,000, but I see why people bulk at it. Like if they just visualize it as being like a scaled down CNC, and I'm like, nah, it's much more than that.
Yeah, because I was recently just doing something with the Panto router a couple of weeks ago, and I wanted to do a wider box joint.
Yeah.
And it comes with these awesome box joint jigs, and you can make a box in about 4 minutes.
Yep.
But it was just what I wanted to do was just wider than the machine would accept. And it just threw everything. I just couldn't easily fix the situation, and I ended up just making a smaller box because it was... but I was just thinking about like large traditional casework and solid timber. You can make perfect dovetail, at least kind of getting rid of most of the waste, but probably most of the cuts for a dovetail you could do with the Shaper.
Yeah,
and it had perfect results and just a little bit of hand tooling to clean up some of the corners and stuff.
Yeah,
that would make a big difference.
Same thing with box joints. Like I always had like I've got a box joint jig and a dado stack for the table saw.
Yeah.
But you were always limited to your box had to be the multiple of those.
Yeah.
So that was always a bit of a pain. Whereas with the shaper, it evenly spaces it no matter what size your workpiece is.
That's cool. Yeah.
So what I would do is I would hog it out on the dado stack just manually to the marks, and then the same thing. I'm taking 1 mil off or half a mil off on the shaper in the workstation, and you get such a nice fit off it, especially if you've got a big diameter bit, like a really stable bit. So yeah, it's exciting. Like I've had so many people, like the number of people over the years that have asked me about it, and they've backed out because they don't want to bring something from America and they worry about the warranty, which is so understandable. But to now actually have it in Australia is pretty cool. So, well, it'll be before this podcast airs, but I think they're doing demonstrations in Melbourne.
Who did you say was bringing it in?
Timbicon.
Yeah, because Timbicon actually bought in the Panto router as well, and that's no longer. They don't want to know about them anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what happened there.
Yeah, I don't know. The Panto router was because it was invented by your man. What's his name?
Yeah, I forget his name.
David something? No.
Yeah. YouTube man. I forget his name now.
Vice or Verts? No.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yes.
So it was invented by him, but then basically manufactured by somebody else, right?
That's right. It was manufactured by some guy in India or something.
Yeah, that rings a bell.
It's fine, and I've got a couple of issues with the build.
Yeah.
But I think generally the whole thing should have been a bit beefier, but I could see they're trying to get the price down.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good tool, but there's so many moving parts on it.
Yeah, 100%.
Inevitably, you're going to have something's going to fail, right?
Yeah.
Whereas the shaper, it's all. There may be as many moving parts, but it's not on me to set that up or ensure its accuracy.
I think the split in the shaper as well of like you've got your computer components and then you have your spindle. So realistically, the spindle's probably going to go before any of the computer componentry. So it's just a matter of unplugging the spindle and putting in a new one again if that fails. But yeah, it's very exciting. I'll stop spruiking it now because they don't pay me to do it. So.
Well, in my little group chats of the makers here in Townsville, there was a lot of grumbling going on about the price.
Yeah.
So I'm very, and that's 5-6 guys at different levels in their career, not necessarily commercial, just saying not a chance. So it'll be interesting to see how they go with this.
The other way to think about it is like because the model of so many businesses is sole trader for makers, like if you have 2 or 3 people sharing a workshop and you put in like $1,500 or $2,000 each or something like that, then it starts to really become a valuable piece because there's so many things that it can do that if you don't have a CNC will take you like half a day that you could do in the shaper in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So then you look at the labor saving and then it starts to stack up.
I was just going to say, even if you got a cheaper like CNC router parts, full size CNC and put it together yourself, you're still taking up a 1-car garage.
Yeah.
And it's a huge outlay of space for most businesses are pretty small. Yep. And you're not always using the CNC. It's handy sometimes, but the rest of the time it collects dust. And so having something you can put in a box and put on the bench or on a shelf, much more versatile.
Yeah. I would love to get a CNC one day, a small one. I would never go full sheet because it's not really what I do, but to have something small that I could do 3D carving of like joints and knuckles and things like that with, then that would provide some value to me. But like I just love the shaper. Like I've raved about it for years. The difference it's made to my business, just being able to engrave things and personalize things for clients, like real small stuff like that. Doing the star map tables, how much quicker it was than using a template and writing it. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how sales go in Australia, because like we are a tiny market and people are very price sensitive about stuff at the minute because of this messed up economy that we're in. So yeah,
I reckon schools will be where it's at.
Schools and colleges, I reckon, is going to fly.
From the technology perspective, that's what they're involved in.
Yeah.
So hopefully it gets in there, because that'd be
because they love the tech of it. A lot of the learning is done on the tool, so you're not going computer to tool.
Yeah,
it's very safe, very difficult to injure yourself on it. So yeah, I reckon you're probably right, Robin. I reckon schools, colleges, woodwork schools, and things like that is where they'll get the majority of their sales.
Yeah.
All right, Robin, what you been doing?
Yeah,
before we get to me, because we're running out of time. I mean, we can go, but
we're not running out of time. This is the bumper episode.
We can go long as we like.
Let's get to those questions that we talked about.
All right,
let's get on.
So yeah, I collated a few questions that have come in on the Instagram on the Shop Stool page. So I have a few here. So we got one from David De La Cruz, who's a long-term listener of the show. And he said, "Hey guys, loved the last episode. Have a question for you for your wrap-up episode. I'm about to do a Robin, so that is now a thing, and try to make a go of it full time. For Robin, what's your top 3 or 5 learnings from this year?"
Ooh, that's a really good question. That is a really good question.
Why don't you put it out as a video, Robin?
Something that we've talked about many times on the show is quoting and getting that wrong. Well, I say wrong. Learning as you go.
Yeah, it's just a rite of passage,
right? And that's been one of the takeaways for me is have a go, but just know that there's a 99% chance that you are going to get this wrong. I mean, I listen to you guys still today talking about fine furniture, getting it wrong. And so many people over the year have come to me with different, the way they work it out now. So they'll say, I think this is going to take me 10 hours. I'm going to add 30% to that. Someone else will say, I think it's going to take 10 hours. I'm going to add 50% to that. So just keep in mind that you're going to do your best to quote. And I think you should be aiming for something. You know, this project that I'm working on now, this vanity, this one I've really gone in with the market price is X. You know, you guys have given me some examples. This is what you would expect to pay for vanities. So I've gone with that. But other than that, all of my other builds, I've worked it out to the hour. And I've got it so wrong so often. But I think trying to get that right is still really helpful. But yeah, just be easy on yourself with that, because if you try and quote your hours and then define your next month's spending based on that, you're gonna have a bad time.
Yeah.
Okay, that's one thing.
That's one thing. Oof. Work is very sporadic. Don't rely on work, and don't beat yourself up if you can't find work. I sort of had all these business ideas. I was going to do this. I was going to do that. I was going to do this, and then 3 months into your year, you're on a different path. You're on a different. Stuff's happened. You're doing different things. So just go easy on yourself if you can't find work. Try obviously where you can and get your name out there and talk to people and be vocal about it, because I think a lot of us woodworkers just want to live in our cave and do woodworking and not network. You know, get it out there, but also be realistic that no one knows you. No one knows you in the space. The work is not just going to come flooding in because you want it. Number 3, get the right tools. Man, having a track saw, it has just been the most amazing thing. And I talk about it in the video that I'm doing for this. And, and getting a table saw, I imagine, is going to be the next thing. You cannot understand how much of an impact that makes. I guess it's hard to outlay that money without the money coming in. But I think, particularly with this track saw, the risk or the taking the hits on that cost would be worth it. I wouldn't be able to make white boxes with my sort of homemade setups that I had.
It's the unfortunate reality of being a furniture maker. Like, there is a huge amount of setup cost. Like it's unavoidable, even if you go second hand, even if you think you're going to buy the cheap stuff and then upgrade, and then it ends up hitting you twice. But yeah, it's kind of unavoidable. Can I ask you?
It's kind of never ending.
Yeah, 100%. Can I ask you, Robin? How do you feel your skill level has improved since you've been a full-time maker? Have you, confidence-wise, in your ability, like to when you know that you're doing something that you haven't done before, do you feel more confident in it?
I don't think I feel more confident in my woodworking skill, just because everything I've done this year, and I'm sure this is going to continue for a couple more years, everything is new. So pretty much every process that I've done this entire year, I've gone, I don't know what the best way is. I don't know how to approach this. I've never done this before. So almost every single build has been new. So you'll probably find there has been an improvement, but the whole time I've felt unsure of my next step. Having said that, I do feel like from a client perspective, from a business perspective, I am a lot more confident now with clients. I understand the quoting process a lot better, and I feel more confident in it. So when I go back and forth with the client, I don't feel like it's, here's the answer, is that okay? It's more, this is what it is. We don't need to continue this.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. That's a big step.
Yeah, because that's it's backing yourself. It's having the confidence that you're the man for the job.
Yeah. A great question, David, and best of luck with your journey next year.
Yeah, keep us up to date.
Yeah.
Keen to hear how it goes.
All right, next question is Hadis from Makers Therapy. I was wondering, could you give me some pointers on building a cabinet that needs to be 900 by 2400 to house a 900 mil wide oven? This sounds like a Joey question. That contained drawers underneath and a cabinet on top. What's the best material to use? Is 15 mil thick pre-finished plywood sufficient, or is there something better? And what preventatives can I put in place to reduce sagging? So we went through the sagging issue with one of your cabinets not so long ago, right?
Well, that was
twisting.
The sides were bowing in.
Bowing out, yeah.
Because it's a very open box vertically.
Yep.
So first of all, plywood, 15, 16 mil pre-finished plywood should be perfect. There's always improvements. You can always improve something, but are you actually going to reap the rewards? Like you could use 18 mil, 19 mil birch ply, and it's going to probably be twice as stiff as carcass grade plywood. But do you really want to triple the cost of your materials for something like this? So that's up to you, I guess. 900 wide oven is huge.
But if it's got a face cover to it with which the oven's set into, like you could basically dial that shelf into the back, right? Like,
well, the way I typically approach oven units like this these days is to make a separate box. You have a lower cabinet with the bottom and a top and the little adjustable legs, and then the oven sits on top of that. And then you screw side panels, which are your face panels, onto the sides of the lower cabinet, and then you can just fit another completely separate cabinet above the oven and screw it to the side panels. The side panels are holding it up, and you actually don't have a cabinet for the oven, no back, because you don't want a back anyway. You want it to be as breathable as possible. Right. So you actually break this one big cabinet up into 3 sections, and the middle section is like negative space, which the oven will fill. That's how I would approach something like this, because you're not going to lift that anyway.
No.
As one cabinet, no one's shifting it, no one's lifting it. It has to be breakdownable. Let's make it into 3 manageable pieces that you could do by yourself.
With these ovens, doesn't most of the weight sit on the outside of the oven anyway? I would assume there would be feet on it, or is it distributed across?
Well, it usually has 4 little feet, and that's it. No adjustment. It's just 4 little knobs of steel, and that's it.
But I just mean that, and so when he refers to sagging, is it from the oven? Because the ovens load is all right against the edges.
It should be on the edges, yeah.
You're not going to have that.
It should be on the edges, but 900 wide is pretty massive. It might have some center set of
gotcha.
feet to hold itself up. So it would be. I would consider whatever went underneath the oven had some kind of central divider. So it was maybe 2 450 drawers or 2 450 cupboards underneath the 900 wide oven, and then you're guaranteed not to have sag.
Or you just fold a lip down at the front, and that's going to brace the shelf.
Yep. Have something hidden behind either a bit of plywood or even a piece of steel, just to guarantee.
All right. Good luck with that, Addis. All right. Next one. Stephen from the Cusp in Queenstown. It's a fellow Kiwi. He says, Hi guys, thanks for another great season. Here's a question for your last episode. And this sounds like another Joey question. I've been asked to make a wooden kitchen bench top 5.6 meters long and 650 wide with a 200 mil deep part that extends into a box window.
Okay.
I think I know what he's talking about. The client here in New Zealand wants something blonde. Here are the questions around this. What timber? I'm considering American white oak or white ash, but both are super expensive in New Zealand. All right. Do you want to start with the timber, Joe?
Yeah, ash all day long. Yes, it's expensive, but it's a third of the price of oak.
There we go.
Try Hereford's timber in Mount Maunganui.
Well,
they've probably got the best.
Would they ship to Queenstown?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chuck it on a truck, go on the ferry. They've probably got the best price in the country for ash.
Drop that name again.
3,000 a cube.
Drop the name again for him?
Hereford's.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. White ash it is.
The problem is the length. 5.6 meters. You're not going to get any timber that comes in that length.
Yeah.
Not even pine.
It's going to have to be jointed.
You're going to have a couple of joins somewhere. Yeah.
What dimension should I use to get a stable result? I.e., do I try full length boards about 30 by 30 or wider boards? We covered 5.6 meters is just going to be highly unlikely. The 30 by 30, I mean, you could, or you just...
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of laminations.
Yeah. Robin will tell you about what that's like to just keep laminating bits of timber together. He's shaking his head.
Big no from Robin.
The problem is you don't want really wide boards because then you will notice a slight scalloping across the top.
Yeah. But anything like 190 or 100.
150 is probably fine.
Yeah.
If you bought 150 rough, by the time you cut it straight at like, let's say you're doing 2.4 meter sticks, you cut a 150 wide board straight and you might get 130 out of it. So that's about
But even machining down a 2.4, unless you've got the right tools for that, if we're not talking about a commercial grade shop here, then it's going to be hard. So
35 mil thick as well. If you take 40 mil rough stock, you'll get 34, 35 mil thick out of it. That would be fine.
Yeah. Even down to 30 might be a little on the skinny side, but I would say anywhere 32 to 35 is probably about what you aim for. Question 3: how best to glue up such a long length? I have a domino and access to a lamello, Sealy's PVA, or some other glue. Do you do a couple of the smaller parts first to glue up and do it in stages? So, it's tricky. Like, if you're doing that 30 by 30 and you're doing it in stages, you're going to be doing a lot of stages. Whereas if you did it 650 wide, depending on what your clamping setup is, you could do it in one hit. Probably wouldn't
do that.
Probably wouldn't use a Sealy's PVA. I probably want to go
just a good alphatic timber glue.
Yeah.
If you look at, I've mentioned them before, the Glue Guru here in New Zealand. Look for their Woodlock. That's Woodlock glue, and they have an alphatic resin. It's like a yellow glue. It's just like Type Bond 2. That's what I'd be going for.
Yep. Why not the Sealy's PVA, Brian?
I just don't think it dries hard enough. Like, That would
It's
be
okay. I agree with Bryan a bit. The Sally stuff is kind of good for if you want a clear finish.
Yeah.
It's nice and clear, but it does have more wood creep than a true alphatic would.
Which is fine
like
if you're doing a frame, like say you're doing a coffee table frame or something like that. Totally fine. Like you never get that creep is immeasurable. Like it's just you're never going to notice it. But if you're doing a 650 wide bench top, where there's a risk of it getting wet as well, like don't know.
And that one that you're talking about, Joey, I've never heard of that glue. What's the?
Well, that is essentially the alphatic part of it is what's making it the yellow glue. So that is what tight bond is.
So when we talk about yellow glue, tight bond, that's the
technical term is
the extra stuff in it.
Version, yeah.
So it's PVA plus that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's a PVA with a modified polymer, which is what they call a cross-linking polymer. And then now I'm just saying words that sound good. So
we're gonna have the Joey's Science Corner next. Joey's Chemistry Corner for next season.
I was going to say with this, it's quite possible with this particular job, with this 5.6 meter length, it's quite possible that the client doesn't want to join. Which is understandable. There's obviously some practical considerations, like can you even glue up 5-6 meter long piece? And once it's glued up, what are you going to do to finish it? Typically for me, I hand plane everything anyway, so I could handle that. But you're going to have troubles with your timber lengths, so the client's going to have to be aware of some overlapping, essentially making what Robin bought from Bunnings some
butt joints,
more high quality version of a butt jointed type of thing, and that can be really tricky to glue up to get those butt joints
tight.
So my advice there would be use the lamello to keep the butt joints together. Put a Clamex clamp in the end grain of those ones. So if you're going to do that, join them together with the lamello, then you can clamp them together a long ways. But that's very hard to make such a long
and then there's the install factors of it as well. Like at 5.6 meters, is there direct access into that kitchen from an outside door that you can swing 5.6 meters around corners?
Have you got 4 guys that can lift that in and bear with you when you like lift it on and off and on and off while you're scribing something in? Like,
are you taking it upstairs, hey?
And the last part of his question was, and what about that window pop out? I'm not entirely sure what you mean by a window pop out, but it's obviously like a continuation of the bench top maybe. And he says make it separate and use a lamello to fit it in situ. And I would say definitely yes.
Absolutely.
Anything that's going to require scribing or like it's already a big enough piece. So 100% make them as 2 separate parts. So he said, really appreciate the advice on this and also all the other tips I've had listening to discuss other projects, not to mention all the entertainment. He obviously means Joey shouting at his clients. All right. I got one last question from Tim at Ozfern. Hey guys, thanks for another awesome season. One question for the final episode. What are your thoughts on red oak? With Vic Ash and Messmate pretty much gone, red oak and glacial oak, as our supplier calls it, seems to be the new standard. When I hear Americans talk about it, they seem to think it's garbage. But to be honest, I really like it. Looking forward to the last show. Have a great break, Tim. All right. So this is going to link back to our whole native logging ban, which we never really got to address because nobody from the government would talk to us, which was awesome.
Yeah, good.
Really cool. So I would say that Vic Ash and Messmate aren't gone yet. There obviously will become a time when the supply dwindles and they're not able to get it from agroforestry and private forests. But at the minute, it is there and the cost hasn't gone up dramatically. So
my supplier's still got it. Price is pretty much the same.
So I would say right now it's fine to use it, but definitely the idea of future-proofing yourself. I'm assuming he's based in Melbourne. I'm not sure, actually. But yeah, if he's talking about Vic Ash, might be Melbourne. Anyway, it's good to future-proof yourself. The glacial oak and red oak. Red oak, I know there's quite a few Americans that really hate it. I think Sean Kirsch, who's one of the Shaper guys, regularly just shits on red oak and has some pretty funny content as a result of it. Glacial oak, it's a funny thing, that glacial oak. Like, the color tone in it is just something that I don't love. I don't
know what it is.
I don't even know what I remember talking to Andy at Urban Salvage once, and he gave me the rundown on exactly what the species is, but I think it might be a red oak as well, or a white oak.
I've never heard of it.
So it is an American oak, but the colors are a bit like it's a bit more similar to red oak if you Google it.
Right.
Yeah, it's got quite a deep grain texture to it. I don't know. It's not really my thing because I'm a sort of a eucalypts guy, but you sort of have to use the material that's available to you, and if that's what's available to you, then that's what you've got to use.
I was just going to say something similar. Red oak is not my favorite, but if there was no other option, I would prefer red oak any day over a pine, any kind of pine, just because it actually has some heft to it. It's got a certain amount of hardness. I don't really like the color. I don't know that I would be that keen to make, like, I made my dining chairs out of it, and they've gone all yellow and gross looking. I've just finished this giant butcher's block out of it, and it was all right. I don't really like the color. What's that?
That looked good.
Yeah, it looked all right. For me, the end grain is fine. It's probably it's really open. The end grain is very open. As soon as I oiled it, the oil came immediately out the other side of that, and it's 150 mil thick.
Are you serious?
It came through within 8 seconds. It was dripping out the bottom.
What?
So it's just like hollow straws all the way through that thing.
That's mental. So, I don't think I've ever had that in like a 40 mil thick board. Like, never mind. Wow.
And you'll never get that with white oak, I don't think. It's just so much denser. More dense. So, but there's still red oak, I think.
Like, red oak, our biggest problem with red oak is the tone, right? Like, the actual grain looks fine. So I would say there's other applications you can use it for. Like, you can dye it black, you can stain it, like you can paint it.
That would be good.
Like, even with it,
painting, absolutely.
Yeah, like
I think
a 2-pack finish, which still sort of shows the grain through it a bit. Like, it could look really cool. But and again, you can have opinions on this, but it's ultimately what your clients are happy with. So
it's also significantly cheaper than white oak, like a third. So it's probably worth telling a client and comparing and saying, look, this table in white oak is going to be $8,000 and red oak is going to be $6,000.
Yep.
You know, you be the judge. But see, in the Northern Hemisphere, certainly America, red oak had been overused. I think in the 80s and 90s, it was just everything was made out of it and everyone's sick of it.
Yeah.
And here it's just a brand new timber and probably people will be fine with it for a while.
I reckon.
There was a good article a few weeks ago that I read on this. I've just found it again. It's on woodcentral.com.au. If you search up, the article's titled "Life After Vic Ash: Australians are choosing American glacial oaks."
Yeah.
There's a lot of good info here about, they talk about red oak and glacial oak. Glacial oak is American oak, according to this article.
Yeah.
So it's pretty much the same thing. Might be worth looking into that. Something else, red oak is now stocked at Bunnings. So
amazing.
Red oak plywood is stocked at Bunnings.
Oh.
I just say that to add to your point, Joey, about this it just being everywhere. You know, very soon, probably Australia will go down that road. And I don't know. I mean, this is a personal thing, but when Bunnings is stocking it as a mass product, do you want to be using it? You know, and that's a personal thing, but red oak is about to become very, very
I will say,
prevalent.
Like Bryan said, if you were to make a dining table and stain it black, no one would be able to tell that it's red oak and not white oak or any other hardwood. You're just going to look at this awesome grain structure. So,
yeah. But that's I didn't realize that it had become that, and especially according to this article, I didn't realize that it had become that popular. What does it say? Record shipments of American hardwoods. U.S. Department of Agriculture revealing that imports are up more than 65% for the first 8 months of the year. So
that's for all American hardwoods, sir?
Yeah. So American hardwoods coming into it, and New Zealand,
Yeah.
There's only one supplier that I know of here that sells red oak, and that is Hereford's, which I mentioned before. Everyone else steers clear of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right,
Cool.
Do we want to talk at all about your stuff, Robin?
Well, is that all the questions then, Brian?
That is all the questions. So thanks to everyone who's sent them in. That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks,
Absolutely.
everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, my stuff. I am working on a vanity, which I have been for the last few weeks. I've just yesterday I figured out all the spacing and drilling locations, etc., for these Blum draw runners, which is the first time I've worked with them. Everyone keeps telling me that the Tandem Box and Taro, which I've gone with, is okay. Next time I need to go with Legra Box.
Legra Box, yep.
Yeah, a little bit more expensive. So far, the stuff's been okay. We were talking before the show. I was saying to Joey how I'm finding I've had to ask for a lot of help from guys on Instagram about interpreting the manual that this comes with. So, perfect example. I didn't know how to cut the width of the base for the draw.
Base, yeah.
So I'm looking at this document and it's saying the width is 75 millimeters. And I'm thinking, that doesn't make any sense. It's got LW-75.
Minus.
No, LW minus 70. Now, again, everyone's listening to this going, oh, my word, he's such a moron. But when you've never looked at this, it's, those little things trip you up. And because I'm unsure of what I'm looking at, because it's not just a written sentence saying, you do X, Y, Z, there's this bit of interpretation. Anyway.
That's why you got to keep notes on it for yourself, Robin, in Robin language. Like literally just notes on your iPhone. Quickest thing ever.
Yeah, so what I did yesterday is I got a sacrificial draw front and I marked out everything I want with my writing all over it. So now for the actual draw fronts, that's what I go off, not the instructions for that exact reason.
Yeah, it's a good rule of thumb with all of this type of hardware where it can be any width or any height depending on what the hardware is. There's always going to be a formula for working out the parts that you've got to make, and it's just a matter of thinking about it from that point of view. If you are making the hardware, what is the formula going to be that you have to give the guy in the workshop? And so then you go looking for something that looks like a formula, and you go and you spot it and you go, oh, that's what I need.
Yeah.
Guys, I'm afraid I'm going to have to tap out. My nurse has just arrived.
I thought that's what it was.
Yeah, change my antibiotic drip. So, yeah, I'll leave you guys to finish the show. It's weird not finishing the last episode with you, but thanks for a great season. It's been really cool. And
absolutely.
Yeah, so much happening this year and so many more things to happen next year. I'd like to personally thank the guests that have come on. Jeremy from JD Lee, Nathan from Haymere, John Goulder and Dan from Bricolage. They've all been superb guests, and we've already got people lined up for next season. So, yeah, looking forward to season 7.
Yeah,
awesome.
Good. And glad to hear you're feeling better. Glad to hear you're on the mends.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, man.
Thanks again for all the messages of support and all that. And hopefully I'll be back in my lovely new workshop in a couple of weeks.
Cool.
Okay.
All right.
Cheers, Brian.
All the best, guys. And thanks to all the listeners. Catch you soon.
All right. Well, I guess we will leave it there then. Yeah, and then we will probably come back. It's normally clock change, which is, I think, April next year?
End of April, I think, something like that.
Yeah, so it'll be around then that we come back. So,
awesome.
hope everyone has a fantastic Christmas and a good New Year.
Absolutely.
And
some time off would be good.
Yeah. Yeah, remember those days when you had a full-time job and someone else was paying the bills so you could
I know.
have a holiday.
And now you're like, I wonder if I could get a job for the Christmas holiday period so I can make some money back instead of just sitting on the couch.
There's a gap in the market there. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Cool.
Yeah. Thanks everybody for listening. It's been it's fun doing this show, and I'm looking forward already to doing some more next year.
Yeah. Sounds good. All right, everyone. We'll see you then.
Take it easy. Bye.
Bye.